Good morning, everybody. So today I'll be talking about the imaging in type B dissection. There is going to be a lot of overlap, so sometimes I'll be asking you questions to see how we are going by. So unlike type A dissection, which if presents in an acute condition, which is treated by surgery, type B dissection could present either in an acute condition or could be a chronic presentation. So, and if it is acute, it could be either a complicated dissection or it could be an uncomplicated dissection. So, whatever imaging modality which we are going to use should be such that it should be able to classify it as a complicated or uncomplicated dissection, because the treatments are different. Uncomplicated can go for a medical treatment, whereas a complicated has to be intervened either surgically or using endovascular techniques. This is the slide which I showed you day before also, but the important thing to remember here, to see here is that unlike in type A dissection, where the sensitivity is 78 to 100%, for type B dissection, the sensitivity of transthoracic echocardiography falls to 31 to 55% only. So it's not the investigation, the screening modality of choice. So if you have a strong suspicion, go for a cross-sectional imaging. Transesophageal echocardiography can see both ascending and descending aorta, but is limited where the abdominal aorta is concerned, and also it's an invasive procedure, operator dependent. So again, we come back to our modality of choice, which is multi-slice CT. But remember, if you have a patient of type B dissection, so whenever you send for a patient for investigation, keep that in mind. Each and every CT you are writing for the patient for is going to entail contrast and radiation. So every time you write CT, remember how many more CTs is going to require, and whether you will be able to, justify asking for this CT or not. So keeping this in mind, we do the CT. As I told before, unless in spite of small aortic segment involvement, we still do the entire aortic assessment, whether it is type B only or type A only case, we still do the whole aorta up to the common femoral artery. So if the patient is presenting in an acute condition or for the first time, we do a gated thoracic study and ungated abdominal CT scan. We also mention the coronary arteries if they are seen well. If the patient has come for a follow-up, normally follow-ups are done on MRI. If for some reason the MR is contraindicated and the CT is being done for the follow-up, then the CT can be done in a non-gated fashion to just see the diameter change and to look for any other features which may suggest a complication. Also, we do a gated study when we are planning a endovascular procedure, because for the sizing of the device, the gated scans are required. Like we talked day before yesterday, the diameter change, I'm sure sir is going to talk about it. There is a diameter change between the diastole and the systole, which changes the graft size dramatically. The sensitivity and specificity is very good for the evaluation of thoracic type B dissection. It ranges up to 98 to 100%. MRI, here I write contrast and no contrast, no radiation on the top, because this is the features, these are the features which take you towards sending the chronic patients for MRI. So this is the best investigation for follow-up studies where you have a pre-existing aortic disease, the patient is on medical therapy and is coming every 6 months for his sequential scanning. Patient has got valvular involvement where you want to see the valve also, so which CT will not show you, where MR will help you. If the patient has had a previous surgical repair, again the patient is on follow-ups. So these are the cases which go for a MRI. Again, the sensitivity and specificity is very good with newer MRI techniques, 95 to 100%. So let's take a scenario of acute aortic condition. So in that, imaging will help you with a diagnosis. It will help you classify the type of the dissection into a complicated and uncomplicated. It will help you localize the tear and will show you the signs of emergency, which will classify it as a complicated case. So this is a patient who will then go for a immediate treatment. So what are the recommendations? The patient undergoes a transesophageal echocardiography followed by a CT with CT angiography, and later on he can be evaluated using MRI. In chronic conditions, like I said before, the issues are only the critical diameter expansion to look for any complications which may have developed over the period, like thrombosis, inflammation. Hence, you don't have to be, the speed and access is not a big issue. So your investigation of choice here becomes MRI. And if for some reason the institute does not have MRI or the patient is contraindicated, there are some contraindications for MRI which we have talked over days. So if those are present, then only a CT can be done. So if the availability is not there, cost is another issue in India. So vis-a-vis MRI, which costs 10,000 rupees, CT costs only 2,000 rupees. So that also, takes you towards CT sometimes rather than MRI. And then there are some contraindications which you are aware of. So only these are the patients who go for CT. This I have already talked. So on non-contrast CT, just like in a type A dissection, you can see the medial displacement of the intimal flap. You can see the flap on the contrast enhanced CT. The tear can be identified. You can see the true lumen, the false lumen, and on the gated scan, just like for the type A, you can have the sagittal oblique view. You can see the spiraling of the flap, true and the false lumen. Reconstructions are the same as we do for the type A, the volume rendered, the MIP projections, and the multiplanar reconstructions. This slide today this is going to be interactive. So we showed you over 2 days so many features showing true lumen, false lumen. So today I'm going to ask the audience which is true, which is false. So this is true, false. Which is this lumen, please? False lumen. Why? 2 features. Thrombus, okay? Yeah, the contrast, what? The contrast is same as the true. It's a wider lumen, more in favor. So the larger lumen is mostly. So what about this lumen? Why? Yeah, more dense contrast. Okay. What else? Yeah, smaller the two. What you can see here is, what is this? A cobweb sign. So this is a false lumen, this is a true lumen. So I have shown you these 2 cases. See, sometimes we say the medial lumen is, true lumen. So I am showing you one case where the true lumen is medial. This is a true lumen which is lateral. So spiraling can happen, in any direction. So you cannot say actually. Okay, look at this case. This is actually a complicated case. This is a complication. Actually aorta has ruptured. You can see there is a lot of pleural fluid. There is pericardial effusion. This is a patient who actually will go for a immediate intervention. So tell me, which is this lumen? False lumen. Why? Less opacification, larger diameter. So I told you about convexity of the flap. Then what did I tell you? I told you this is how a normal the true lumen will be in the concavity. So this is a contra image. You can see it is on the opposite side. Now this true lumen is lying towards the convexity of the flap. This one is lying towards the concavity of the flap. So whatever we have told you actually applies, but you have to see they may all vary. So you have to see the continuity above and below, and you have to keep this in mind. So here you can see the density also is same. So actually you cannot differentiate between the 2 lumen. Yes, the size is big, but here the density is same. Again, differentiation becomes difficult. So there are so many features, you have to keep them all in mind and then decide which is the true lumen. Now this is a patient, again, which has 2 lumini. Can you tell which is true, which is false? I can't tell. Because here, unless I go and see slices above and below, I cannot tell. Because here, it is totally different scenario. So all these things, all the features, thrombus, size, opacification, cobweb sign, and most importantly, continuity above and below with the undissected aorta should all be kept in mind before you decide on the true and false lumen. The next important thing is to look at the branch vessel involvement, whether it is reaching up to the branch or not, whether if it has gone, whether it is causing a significant stenosis or not, and sometimes there could be an obstruction of the branch vessel. So branch vessel again has to be looked for. Sometimes there are some atypical appearances which may appear, like I showed you before also. This is a case of intimo-intimal intussusception. So what has happened is the true lumen has been intussuscepted in itself, so it is all surrounded on all the four sides by the false lumen. So it is the true lumen which is inside. Then sometimes you may see calcified false lumen with mural calcification of the false lumen. Then you may have secondary dissections also. So a typical Mercedes-Benz sign may be seen. Sometimes even many more dissections may occur. So that also can be seen in certain cases. Again, to re-emphasize, diameter measurement should be parallel to the blood flow. It should not be in the axial cuts. So do not take your measurements in the axial cuts. It should be perpendicular to the wall of the aorta. So in this case, see, it is almost a vertical measurement, which actually is the axial measurement. So that should be again kept in mind. So there are certain features which tell you that it is a complicated type B dissection which needs to be treated either by surgery or endovascular treatment. This includes a ruptured aorta. This is a patient. This is the image which I showed you earlier also. This is pleural effusion, pericardial effusion. This is a patient who has had a rupture and needs the treatment. See a lot of fluid here. Second is a patient who is hemodynamically unstable. Third is a patient who is symptomatic. A symptomatic patient, even if he does not have the diameters of the critical diameters for the thoracic type B dissection, still he should be treated. So critical descending aortic diameter, even if asymptomatic, again goes as an indication. Dr. Sanjeev Sharma will be talking about the diameters. Then poor perfusion of the thoracoabdominal aorta, malperfusion with visceral ischemia, uncontrolled hypertension, distal embolization. So these all features suggest a complicated dissection, and the outcomes have been shown to be worse if the patient also is having a secondary retrograde involvement of the aortic arch and ascending aorta also. This we have talked before. So you do not do a CT if the patient is allergic to iodinated contrast and if patient is severely hemodynamically unstable, unless you think that the risk is definitely worth taking. Radiation risk should always be kept in mind, and the repeated studies should be done for should be MR only. On MR, you get similar images. These are white blood sequences. You can see the flap. Again, you can see the break in the entry tear and the flap, true lumen, false lumen. Similarly, just like you see in CT angiography, you have, so I have put MR angio and CT angio side by side to show you how the white blood images are almost similar to what you see on the CT angiogram. So similar pictures you will see. And most importantly, these images are without contrast. So this is a very, very plus feature in favor of MRI. Contrast enhanced MR angiography, like we talked before, when you want volumes, you want better spatial resolution, you want to see the relationship to the branch vessels, then you can go for a contrast enhanced MR angiography. Iotography has actually no role in diagnosing the patient. It is indicated only when the patient is going to be taken up before an endovascular intervention. We do DSA before we put in the stent graft, or when coronary angiography is needed, the patient already has had a CT and probably the coronaries were not assessed, then only it can be done. The sensitivity and the specificity are in the range of 90 and 95%. And what you will see is an intimal flap. So this is an injection which has been done in the ascending aorta, and you can see this is a true lumen which is filling a chinked out. And you can see this appearance of a thickened wall, which is actually the thrombosed false lumen, which may later on fill in the later phases. So this is, you may see filling of these false lumen in the later phases. And you may also see branch vessel involvement in these cases also. Briefly about malperfusion syndrome, since it's going to be dealt with later also. So you have basically there are two types of obstruction which can occur. The dynamic obstruction, where the flap actually does not enter the branch vessel but is across the branch vessel and it covers it like a curtain. So this is a flap which is across the celiac axis. This is the static obstruction which has gone into the branch vessel, and this needs spot treatment, so it has to be treated with the stent placement like in this case. This is a patient who has had total obstruction of the left renal artery. You can see the nephrogram is not opacified at all, and on the right side there is normal opacification of the kidney. So it is important that we identify this dissection, identify whether it is a dynamic or a static dissection, because the intervention modalities are different of the two, and we should identify the collapsed true lumen, which branch artery is dissecting, and we should also look for the signs of organ malperfusion, which if present should indicate immediate treatment. So what are the recommendations for the aortic imaging? These are actually class 1 indication, but the level of evidence is again C. These were published in Circulation 2010. So again, they mention the same thing which I have discussed. The diameters, the external diameters are used, and they should be measured perpendicular to the axis of the blood flow, not to the body axis. Then the abnormality of aortic morphology should also be documented. So even if the diameters are normal, even if you see some irregularity outpouching, they should be documented. And if there is a complicated aortic dissection, then immediately it is important that radiologists make sure that the physician is immediately communicated about the findings. We also tell our patient, we phone here also we do the same thing, we phone the surgeon and tell him that we are having a patient who needs immediate treatment, and is taken up. The other thing is the level of evidence is obviously B. You have to make sure that you minimize the episodic and cumulative radiation exposure. So use MRI for the follow-ups and CT for the acute cases. So for the acute, do CT unless contraindicated. MRI is useful where contrast agents are contraindicated, and where you want it to be done as a screening tool for long multiple follow-ups. And gated study should be needed. Would be needed if the coronaries are to be evaluated or when you are planning to do a EVAR. Thank you. Any questions?